So I've got, we'll call it a serious bone to pick with HGTV, because everybody tells you that kitchens and bathrooms are what sell homes, right? You watch the shows and then you read the blogs, and then you think if you just put in a farmhouse sink and some subway tile, then you're gonna cash out big time. Well, here in Washington State, that generic advice honestly is not just wrong, it could actually cost you thousands of dollars on your home sale. And I say this because we have been in thousands of homes and we see these sellers make the same mistake every single week. They'll dump, say, 50 grand into a cosmetic remodel that may look pretty on Instagram, but then they're completely failing to address the actual nitty-gritty realities of living in the Pacific Northwest with their home. Well, I am real estate broker Leah Courage. I'm your Washington real estate advisor here. And if you've seen our other videos, then you know that I am a realist and I deal in hard numbers and not BS. So today I'm revealing 12 specific features that will actually drive up sale prices in our markets right now in spring 2026. And these aren't just things that simply make a house look pretty or an open house. And let's be frank, there are a lot of those tricks too, but these are even more crucial. These are the things that make a house work for the people that actually live here. And I guarantee that half of these aren't even on your radar, but they are absolutely critical if you want to create a bidding war instead of watching your listing just go stale on the market. So let's dive in. Okay, so we're actually going to start with the meat of what we're talking about. We're going to break this down into 4 phases, starting with the exterior. So this is phase 1, the curb appeal kings, if you will. So in Washington, first impressions are rarely sunny and bright. They're usually wet and gray with a lot of green, and they're pretty shadowed. So we need features that are going to pop against the gloom and also, more importantly, that are going to signal low maintenance to a buyer who is afraid of rot. Feature number 1 is the insulated garage door. And I know that this sounds boring, but please hear me out, because if you drive through the suburbs like Kirkland or Shoreline or Bothell, what are you going to see? You're going to see thousands of split-level homes and split entries built in the 1970s and the 1980s. And in these architectural styles, the garage is literally 40% of the face of the house. It's the first thing that you see when you drive by. And then if you have an old, dented, uninsulated aluminum door, it's going to look cheap. But there is a functional reason that this matters actually even more. So in a split-level home, the master bedroom is often located directly above the garage. So if that garage is freezing cold because of a thin and super cheap door, the floor of the bedroom is going to be freezing cold. And buyers here, they know this. They're looking carefully. They walk into a bedroom and they're going to feel the chill, and mentally they're going to deduct instantly 10 grand. And so replacing that door with a high R value insulated, modern looking, nice, clean, fresh door doesn't just instantly modernize the curb appeal, but it absolutely also improves the energy efficiency of the entire home, because it's a visual cue that says that this home is well taken care of. I guarantee it. So feature number 2, as long as we're talking about doors, is the steel entry door. So honestly, this is purely a function of our climate. We've got 9 months of moisture, and it's not necessarily always heavy rain, but the humidity is absolutely constant. And I cannot tell you how many times I have tried to open a front door at a showing, and I have had to shoulder check it just to get in because the wood has swollen to the frame. It's embarrassing for the seller, and it's incredibly frustrating for the buyer. And it's really awkward for us as real estate brokers. And it signals deferred maintenance. So a high quality factory painted steel entry door is impervious to this type of a situation. It doesn't swell and it doesn't stick, and it's very, very secure. So security is definitely a rising concern for buyers in a lot of the metro areas around here. And a steel door feels substantial. So the return on an investment for a steel entry door replacement consistently hits near the very top of the Pacific Region cost versus value report. What that means is that it's usually returning nearly 200%. So that means that if you spend, say, $2,000, then you get $4,000 back in perceived value. So it's a no-brainer. Okay, now, if you're sitting there before we continue and you're watching this and you're thinking about making a move, whether that's selling your current place or buying a new one, don't just guess at the value. Go ahead and reach out to us. But here's the critical part. I know that a lot of you watching might not be moving to or from Washington. You might be planning a trip to or move to Austin or Nashville, or maybe you're relocating internationally to London or even a place like Tokyo. Well, you need to know that we have a trusted partner program specifically designed for you. So we've spent years vetting top-tier data-driven agents just like us from all over the United States and the world. So if you're planning a move anywhere, call us. We will personally pair you with an agent who matches our standard of realism and grit so that you don't end up with somebody who just wants to sell you a dream. So contact us and let's make sure that you are protected no matter where your map takes you. So feature number 3 is fiber cement siding, specifically hardy plank. So in the Pacific Northwest, this is the gold standard, and for a very good reason. So if you list a home, say in Snohomish County or Pierce County, and you write new hardy plank siding in the first line of the description, you have just eliminated one of the biggest fears for home buyers, which is dry rot. We have a lot of history here of very bad siding products. Does anybody remember LP siding from the 90s? Ooh, buyers are really traumatized by it. So they see composite wood siding and then they panic about things like water intrusion and mold behind the walls. Makes sense, right? Well, fiber cement is concrete. It does not rot. It's fantastic. And it also doesn't get eaten by bugs. And crucially, this is kind of funny, but the woodpeckers, which are a massive influence in our wooded suburbs, cannot drill holes into it. It's too hard. We have literally seen buyers walk away from beautiful homes because of LP siding that the sellers claimed was well maintained. But at the end of the day, it's sometimes really hard to tell. And so buyers see that and they think $60,000 to replace all the siding. Well, hardy plank resolves that anxiety instantly. So now we move on to phase 2, the climate defense system. So this is all about comfort and health. So the Washington buyer of 2026 is terrified of 3 things specifically. You've got mold, the big dark of the winter, and increasingly wildfire smoke in the summer. So your home needs to be a fortress against these elements. So that leads us to feature number 4, which is the heat pump. So this is becoming, unfortunately, a non-negotiable here. So if you still have baseboard heaters or just a gas furnace, you are unfortunately behind the curve a little bit. So a heat pump is the trifecta solution. So first, it provides ultra efficient heat for our mild winters, costing way less to run than those electric wall heaters. And second, and this is proving to be a game changer, it provides air conditioning as well. So 5 years ago, AC was a luxury in Seattle. People would laugh and say, well, you only need it 3 days a year. But now it's absolutely false, especially after the heat dome that we saw in 2021. Whew, let me tell you. So we're seeing 90-degree days regularly in July and August all over the Sound. So houses here are built to retain heat, which means that they turn into ovens in the summertime. So a home without AC sits on the market significantly longer. And third, and this is the medical necessity part, heat pumps provide air filtration. So during smoke season in August or September, when the wildfires from Canada or Eastern Washington blow into the basin, the air can actually get quite dangerous, unfortunately. So buyers want to know that they can close the windows and still breathe clean, cool air. And a heat pump solves all of these 3 massive problems. Feature number 5 is maximizing light with solar tubes or skylights. So we have to talk about light as a form of currency here in Washington, because from November to June, we actually live under a gray blanket, as you well know. The sun sets at 4:15 in December and it's dark. And a house that feels dark, unfortunately, is a house that feels depressing. And depressing houses do not sell for top dollar. So you might have a hallway or a guest bathroom that has no windows, for example. In Arizona, that's just fine. But here, it's a dungeon, or at least it feels like it's a dungeon. So installing a solar tube, which is a reflective tube that channels natural light down from the roof into the room, actually costs maybe $800, $1,200 installed, but it completely transforms the space and it makes the house feel 20% bigger and infinitely more welcoming. So when I walk a buyer through a home on a rainy Tuesday in November and the hallway is actually glowing with natural light, their mood automatically lifts and they stay longer. And the longer the buyer stays in your home, the more likely they are to write an offer. So feature number 6 is continuous hard surface flooring like luxury vinyl plank or LVP. So you might love the feel of the plush carpet on your toes, but I need you to understand an important element of this equation. Carpet plus rain, which we have a lot of, and or animals and our kids, let's be honest, equals smell. So it's just physics. We have wet climate here. We have muddy hiking boots. We have golden retrievers who go out into the rain and come back soaking wet and muddy and very happy, by the way. So if you have carpet in your main living areas or high traffic zones, they are trapping moisture, dirt, and allergens. So they develop a dog smell that might be nose blind for you in that you don't smell it, but the buyer will absolutely smell it the second that they open the front door, guaranteed. So story time, we have literally had buyers walk in the front door of a home, say, nope, really loudly, turn on their heels and leave because of an ultra strong dog smell that is trapped in the carpet. So LVP, luxury vinyl plank, is the practical and more cost-effective choice than hardwood for Pacific Northwest lifestyles here. Waterproof, it's scratch resistant, and you can make it look like anything you want, like white oak or walnut. So it allows a buyer to better visualize their kind of muddy and active life in your home without worrying about ruining the floors. So if you rip out that old beige carpet and you put in LVP, you're actually modernizing the look and you are definitely removing a potential ick factor simultaneously. So we finally arrived at the turn, and this is where I need to give you a little bit of tough love. So we need to stop obsessing over the chef's kitchen. I see sellers, not ours, but other agent sellers, who are practically bankrupting themselves, putting in marble countertops and a 6-burner wolf range and custom shaker cabinets, and they drop tens of thousands of dollars into their kitchen thinking that they're guaranteed a massive return. And then when they list the house and it has a mossy roof and single pane windows from 1978, buyers don't like that. So don't be like that. Don't do that. So here's the truth. Washington buyers are pragmatic. They're looking at the monthly cost of ownership and the capital expenditure risks. So they'll take, say, a clean, minorly updated kitchen, maybe just some quartz counters and painted cabinets, over a luxury kitchen any day if it means that the house has a newer roof and a dry crawl space and a newer furnace. So they can live with a dated backsplash, but they cannot live with a leaking roof. So don't spend your budget on the jewelry, so to speak, when the skeleton of the house is totally broken. You're appealing to smart people buying here. They're experienced usually in purchasing homes, and they have their spreadsheets, and they're calculating the lifespan of your mechanical systems. So if you give them a kind of a glitzy kitchen, but a failing furnace at the same time, then you risk your home having kind of a lipstick on a pig type of effect, like I like to say, and you also risk the buyers just completely walking away. So let's move on to phase 3, how we actually live. So this is about lifestyle and tech. So our economy is driven by massive tech giants like Amazon and Microsoft, and our weekends are driven by, say, the Cascade Mountains and the Puget Sound, because people love being in the outdoors here. So your house needs to support both of these identities. So feature number 7, that's 7, is covered outdoor living. Notice I said covered, by the way. An open deck in Seattle is practically useless for pretty much 7 months out of the year. So it can be wet, it can be slippery, and it will definitely get covered in pine needles somehow, no matter where you are, even if you're in the middle of the city away from trees. I don't know how that happens, but it does. But if you put a roof over that deck and maybe add some recessed lighting and you have an outdoor heater, then you have just created a year-round room. And we love to be outside in this state even when it's drizzling. We want to grill in October. We want to sit out with our steaming cup of coffee on a nice misty March day. And a covered outdoor space expands, in effect, the usable square footage of your home. It just does. It connects the indoors to the outdoors in a way that is actually functional for our climate here. So it turns it'd be nice to have into a lifestyle essential. So feature number 8 is the hard-working mudroom. I love a good mudroom. Oh, don't get me started. So we don't typically have formal foyers here in Washington. Most homes don't have grand entrances with chandeliers where you greet guests in evening gowns, as much as I might fantasize about having that type of a home, but we do have drop zones. So whether you're in rainy Bellingham or muddy North Bend or right in the city, you need a place to transition from the wet outdoors to the dry indoors. So if your front door opens directly onto the carpet of your living room, that is a problem. So you need to create a kind of a dedicated space, even if it's just a strategic wall with a bench and maybe a heavy-duty hook or two for wet rain jackets and muddy boots and dog leashes. We call this a kind of a sanity saver, because when a buyer sees a well-organized mudroom, then they subconsciously will start to relax because they see a place for their mess. So feature number 9 is having the Zoom-ready office. And I know you're already thinking it, because remote work is not a trend here. It's a permanent shift in our economy. So the hybrid schedule is the standard for tech workers at this point. So this means that for 2 or 3 days a week, the house is the office. But here's the insider detail that most sellers completely miss. The office needs, imagine this, a closing door. So during the pandemic, everybody thought that open lofts were really cool, but then they realized that when 2 people are on a Microsoft Teams call at the same time, an open loft becomes something of a nightmare of echoing noise. So you cannot sell a den as an office. It's just an alcove off the kitchen. But if you can frame a door, then do it. So also, soundproofing is a massive selling point. A quiet, dedicated space with hardwired internet is worth its weight in gold in Washington. Feature number 10 is the gear garage or gear storage room. So this goes back to our ultra outdoorsy lifestyle that we have here. So we have more toys than you can shake a stick at, and definitely more toys than the average American here in Washington. We've got things like kayaks and paddle boards and skis and snowboards and mountain bikes and camping gear, you name it. So a standard garage that is just a concrete box tends not to be enough. So if you install heavy-duty overhead storage racks or slat walls for bike storage, and you have organizational systems, then that means that you are selling buyers the dream. You're showing buyers, look, this is where all of your expensive gear is going to go. It fits right here, and you can still park your Tesla in the garage. It signals that you understand who they are. You're selling them the organization of their hobbies, which is incredibly appealing to a demographic that values experiences over things here in Washington State. So finally, we're at stage 4, which is future proofing. So this is where smart money actually is. So feature number 11 is being EV ready. So Washington State has some of the highest electric vehicle adoption rates in the entire nation. So if you're selling a home in the greater Seattle area, there is a very high probability that your buyer drives an EV. You probably might also. Or your buyer might plan on buying one soon. So you don't need to install, say, a fancy brand-specific charger that may or may not match their car. You just need to install the NEMA 1450 outlet. So this is a 240-volt outlet, basically a dryer plug in the garage. It costs a few $100s for an electrician to run this line, but when you list the home, you can check EV ready. And that is a filter that buyers absolutely use in these parts. So it signals to a techie buyer that you're speaking their language. And it also removes a friction point that they then don't have to worry about with calling an electrician the week that they move in, just so that they can plug in their car and charge it. Feature number 12 is huge, and it's ADU potential. So affordability is a massive issue in our region. Prices are high and interest rates are what they are, unfortunately. So house hacking is massive right now. So buyers are looking for ways to either offset their mortgage through renters or have family members like aging parents move in with them. So if you have a basement with a separate entrance or a layout that could easily be converted into an accessory dwelling unit, otherwise known as an ADU, or a mother-in-law, then you need to highlight that. You don't necessarily have to build the whole second kitchen, but plumbing it or framing it out so that the potential is obvious can be truly a gold mine. It tells the buyer this is an asset that can generate income. And in a high-cost market like what we're in here, an income-generating asset is infinitely more valuable than just a single-family home that is purely a liability. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a secret bonus section. So I'm going to talk about these, which I call the silent value killers. So these are the 3 invisible things that can absolutely tank your home's value overnight if you don't address them. So I call these the unknowns because sellers are often completely blind to them until they get a lowball offer. So value killer number 1 is the steep driveway discount. Maybe it sounds obvious, maybe it doesn't, but let me tell you, it makes a big difference. So our topography here is incredibly hilly. We have driveways that look like ski jumps. So if your driveway is terrifyingly steep, you're going to lose certain buyers. That's just a fact. So you have factors like delivery drivers not being willing to go down them. And in the winter, if it ices over, you are trapped inside of your house. So if you have a steep driveway, you cannot hide it. It's not going to happen. You have to work with it and you have to mitigate it. So ensure that the drainage is absolutely perfect next to the driveway so it doesn't turn into a river. If it's slick, then go ahead and resurface your driveway with high traction concrete if at all possible. And also, you're going to hate me for saying this, but you have to be realistic on price because you will trade at a discount compared to the flat lot next door. So value killer number 2, believe it or not, can be a west-facing solar oven of a house. So everyone thinks that they want a west-facing home for the sunsets. And let's be honest, the sunsets here are amazing. But in modern Washington summers, a wall of west-facing windows without AC or high-quality blinds is an absolute nightmare. In our house, when we moved in, our floors were literally buckling. It got so hot. That's how hot it can get. So the sun hits that side of the house from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. right when you're trying to cool down. Not ideal. And it can make bedrooms completely unbearable. And guess what? Smart buyers know this. So if you have exposure, then you have to install AC or ultra high octane solar shades before you list. You have to be able to prove that your house is actually livable in August. So value killer number 3 is the mossy north side of the home. And this is so specific to the Pacific Northwest. So you know this, I know this, the north side of your roof and the north side of your siding never sees the sun here. So it stays wet. And that means that moss always grows there. And algae grows there too. So if a buyer pulls up and they've seen green fuzz on your roof, then they can think water damage immediately. They think that the roof is nearing the end of its life, and it can be a massive red flag for them. So the secret weapon here is simple: zinc strips, or just a professional roof cleaning before you list. But for the love of Pete, do not pressure wash your composition roof. If I had a nickel for every time I saw a nice looking comp shingle roof that once you get closer to it, you realize was pressure washed and now needs to be replaced 15 years sooner, I'd have a hell of a lot of nickels. So a good practice is a gentle washing. It costs a few $100s to treat the moss, and then you let the moss die. And then once the moss is dead, they will come back and they will gently brush it off and remove it. It will save you from a $10,000 credit request during the inspection contingency. Do not let moss dictate your negotiation leverage, and please don't pressure wash your comp roof. Don't do it. So let's summarize. Stop looking at Pinterest for renovation ideas. Focus on the practical, dry, light, lots of natural light, and tech ready. Focus on the garage door, the heat pump, and the hardy plank, and the functionality of the home. These are the things that will print a lot more money in Washington. And we want you to make as much money off of your home sale as you possibly can. Thank you so much for watching, and please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel. And also, if you're thinking about selling in the next 6 to 12 months and you want to know exactly where to spend your money to get the highest return on your specific and unique property, don't guess. Pick up the phone and call or text us, because my team and I will do a walkthrough and we will give you the honest truth about your home's value. We will curate a bomb-proof strategy to get your home sold, and then we will also deliver you our unique punch list for your home that you need to tackle before selling. All of our information is in the description below, and we would truly be honored to help you make your next move with confidence. So thanks again so much for watching. Keep exploring, and we will see you in the next video.